bearing with me. So this morning, I'm really excited to bring this topic because it's quite literally a body of knowledge and a system of ceremony and processes that have altered the trajectory of my life. It's that foundational to me. So I'm really happy to bring it to you. And I'm hoping that we can have engaging conversation. I encourage you to ask questions. There's so much here in this body of knowledge, the rites of the Munay Ki, that I'm going to break it up into two parts. So this is going to be part one. And one of the themes that I want to communicate to you this morning is that this isn't just talking and transmitting knowledge through talking, right? I'm going to do my best to describe these rites, but the rites themselves are energetic. They're about relationship with yourself, with others, with the earth, with the universe. They're about harmony, so many other things. So the talking part that I'm doing now is just the beginning. And I'm really excited. My heart's beating fast because it's so meaningful to me, the things that I've learned. And just to give you a little bit of a background on me and how I came to this. So since probably the age of 16 or so, I've been reading 2 to 3 books a month. And so now at 57, you can do the math, lots and lots of books. And sometimes I read more, especially when audiobooks started getting popular. The reason I'm saying this is because the grounding that I have in world religion and philosophy and thought and history from, the researchers that are actually out on the front lines researching what actually happened, not the stuff that we learned in schools, gave me a hunger to learn more. And what I realized when I started becoming an initiate in these rites is knowing it is one thing. I always thought it was amazing and cool, but it was intellectual stories. And what I'm talking about amazing and cool specifically are the indigenous beliefs of a lot of the cultures around the world. What particularly fascinated me are the archetypes. Carl Jung came up with that term and called it archetypes of universal concepts or constructs, the upper world, the lower world, the middle world, good and evil, even animals and creatures that are either never existed or no longer exist, things like dragons, vampires, werewolves. All cultures, or nearly all cultures, have concepts of these things. And yet many of these cultures have never existed. And that's what led Carl Jung to kind of get into talking about the collective consciousness and the things that we all share as humans on this planet. And I'm saying all this kind of to lay the groundwork that these rites share many of those concepts that many other cultures have had over the millennia. And these rites go back to the time of the Inca and before, so 700 years. And it's all about karpais. The word karpai, Karpay, means initiation. And they believed back then, as the knowledge keepers who are practicing these rites now believe, that we are luminous beings having a mortal or a temporal experience. And these rites are really designed to connect us to our integrated whole, the total being that we are, the luminous, the physical, mind, body, spirit, source, all of it together. And the Inca called it, or thought of ourselves, thought it was easy for me to say. The Inca thought of themselves as the children of light. Now that concept has evolved over the centuries to the knowledge keepers, the wisdom keepers now think of all humanity as the children of light. not just exclusively to one thing. So one of the important concepts I want to emphasize is having these rites transmitted to you requires nothing more than your own divine nature. You are a child of light, right? We're all children of light. And I mentioned this is about connecting you to your authentic self and putting you in the flow of life, the flow with the capital F. Flow is a concept that crosses generations, crosses bodies of knowledge. And it's one of those things that if you've experienced it, you know you're in it. And when you're not in it, you know you're not in it, right? So there is a flow to how things work in the universe. And there's a flow to each of us personally in our own lives. And if you see me looking down, it's because I made some notes. I want to make sure that I'm covering everything. So Alberto Villoldo, who's the founder of the Four Winds Society, who has the school that I was initiated through into these rites, was taught by Don Manuel, his shaman teacher, many decades ago when he was a scientist, and he went to the Andes and to the Amazon to study plant medicine, and ended up being a carrier of these rites and a transmitter of them now, right, along with his wife Marcela, who wrote the book, and many, many other students. So it's a powerful tradition and a powerful lineage. And the way that Don Manuel talked about the rites of the Munay Ki are the seeds that offer the gift of power, but they must be used for good. And that's key. And what I found, and what many other students have found, initiates, I should say, not students, although we're all students all the time, is that issues that you've had your whole life that begin to resolve once you begin practicing these things. And I'm going to get into what some of the specific rites are, but I'm just laying a little groundwork. And one of the key principles, or the key operating principles, I would say, behind them are, I'm going to give you some Quechua words. New words are fun to learn, right? Yachai, Munay, and Yankai. Those three things, those three words, right? Yachai is clear vision and calm thinking, right relationship, right thinking. Munay is unencumbered love and feelings, or right feeling. And in the West, we have this term unconditional love. The Andes, they say it more like unencumbered love. But I think those two concepts cross over. And then Yankai, right doing or right action. And it's love in action, really, is how I look at it. So you see the Pacos, the shamans in the Andes, talk about Yankai, Munay, and Yachai. And they touch their third eye, their heart, and their belly, sacral area, or solar plexus area, sorry. And those three concepts kind of inform all of the rites. And it's kind of the guide for life, right? When you think about it, it can't get any more basic than that. Right relationship, right thinking, right feeling, right action. That's what we try to do as humans. So the first rite that gets transmitted is the healer's rite. And you'll see the flow, hopefully, as we go through these 10 rites, of why they're kind of in the order they are. It kind of makes sense. Because the healer's rite, a lot of us come to this in a quest for healing ourselves. In fact, most of the people that I talk to that have gone through this, it's because they're on a mission or a quest to heal themselves. And Christine says it's a guide to creating heaven on earth. Yes, could not agree more. Because if you're in right relationship, doing right actions, having right feelings, and you're doing that on the daily with everyone in your life, How could it not? Right? And imagine if everyone was doing it. Sorry, I'm just repositioning things a little bit so that I can see them. I'm on a different computer this morning. My primary computer decided not to work. So the healer's rite, or Hampai Karpai. So remember, Karpai is right. Hampe is healer in Quechua. And the healer's rite is about a number of things. One is to kind of initiate you into healing itself, right? And activate the healing power in your hands specifically, but also the healing energy in your body. And it looks like I have a hand raised. That's interesting. I didn't know that was possible. There's nobody in Zoom with me right now. Anyway, maybe something's trying to stop me from transmitting this information. I don't know. But I'm just going to keep going with it. So Hampe Karpai, activating healing in your hands, but also in your luminous energy field, which is your true self, and connecting you to the lineage of all the healers that have come before. And going back to the beginning of when this rite was being formulated, right? So imagine that, thousands and thousands of healers over hundreds of years at least. And the true belief that we're all connected and we all help each other heal. And one of the amazing ideas that really kind of knocked me for a loop as I was integrating it into my consciousness, so to speak, is the notion of transforming your wounds into your power and how powerful that is. And how inclusive that is. You think about other healing traditions where we tend to put people on a pedestal. Like in order to be a healer, you have to look and act a certain way, or you have to achieve a certain level of, spiritual enlightenment or something, right? And that's not what the Pacos believe. The Q'ero culture is we're all healers. And to be a healer is our divine right. And we're all wounded, right? Everybody has gone through something. Even if you've had a relatively blessed life, everybody has trauma, everybody has wounds. And so this rite is really about taking all of that and using it to heal others, to help others as you help yourself. And you'll see this concept of reciprocity and equal sharing and harmony throughout all of these rites. It's a central concept. It's called Aini. You've heard me talk about it before. Ayni, Aini. And it incorporates the concept of reciprocity, harmony, peace with all things, with people, with the planet, with spirit. And it informs all of these rites. So the healer's rite being the first one. And it's not about, like I was alluding to before, it's not about what we do, it's who we are. And we are wounded healers. And so each one of these rites also, when you're initiated, and it carries with it a little ritual of reinforcement. And it's something that many of us do every day to reinforce the rites, because remember, it's a seed. And seeds have to be watered, and they need sun, they need love to grow. And so that's why we do this, right? It's a spiritual practice, but it's also very practical, because every time we do the ritual, we reinforce our commitment to ourselves and to our way of life and to our core values. So it's not in any way rote. It's not we're just reciting something and hoping for the best, right? This is really about reinforcing these seeds of power that were planted with us by the lineage that we're learning from. And one of the things we do with the healer's rite to kind of bring it in is we create a mandala in nature. If you know that word mandala from other spiritual traditions in the East, Buddhism particularly, it's a sand painting or a painting made with natural materials. And I've done it several times now, and I can tell you that it's an incredibly grounding, special ritual to just be in nature and collect found items and create something really basic, really primal. And as you're being initiated, this is also where we can look at bringing in stones. We call them kuyas, helpers, to help us do our energy work. And we can make those part of the mandala, right? But that's a whole other thing for another time. It's a much deeper subject. Right now, I'm just trying to give you an introduction to these rites and why they're significant and kind of how they can help you in everyday life on a practical basis. So once we bring in the healer's rite and we kick everything off, the next rite is the bands of power. And that might sound mysterious and intimidating a little bit, but it's really not. It's a very powerful, practical way to connect our luminous energy field to the energy fields all around us, starting with the earth. So you can't see my hands. I'm going to back up a little bit, but down here, your lower belly is where we install the black man power. And the black band of power connects us to the earth. Then we come up to the solar plexus region, and we have the red band of power, the water, the blood of the earth. Then we go up to the heart, the golden band of power, the fire. And then we have the silver band of power, the air, breath, the breath of the earth, the breath of all things, and our breath. And then finally, we get to the white band of power, the white of pure light, the pure light of spirit. And you can sort of start to see also how these rites are so inclusive of so many other ways of thinking. So this is I'm going to get this question a lot with people that are new to this knowledge, because the Andean cosmology and the Andean way of thinking is hardly universal across the planet, right? So it's new to a lot of people. And one of the most immediate questions I get is if somebody has heartfelt beliefs, like let's just say, for example, they're Christian or they're Jewish, right? How does Andean cosmology inform or conflict with anything I know? My personal take on it, having studied religion for over 30 years, is that it doesn't. It's primal and it's elemental. And doesn't affect, if anything, the way I look at it, it would deepen your faith, because it's connecting you in a new way to all these primal elemental energies that are all around us that you may already have names for in your religion. So just open your mind a little, be open to what this might be able to bring to you and to inform you. And the way I look at it, all knowledge is good knowledge. We judge it and we use it either in a positive or a negative way, right? So just let the knowledge in. So we talked about the bands of power, right? Chumpi, Karpai. Chumpi means belt or band in the Quechua language. And we have these different bands of power that we reinforce that connect us to those primal elements. And it's about protection and healing through connection. I want to talk just a minute about that, because it's a different way of thinking about protection. There's a lot of spiritual traditions that have this oppositional notion of protection, like something that's separate from us. I need to be protected from it, or I need to protect other people from it, right? That's very common. And so much of the Andean philosophy, the Q'ero philosophy, is about integration and balance and harmony. And the notion of protection as it applies to the bands of power, in my view, it's about protection through harmony. If everything is in harmony, there's no opposition, there's no conflict, right? So that's a profound thing. And I take that in every day, and I think about anything that triggers me, whether it's, a bad driver or, somebody that is rude to you in a grocery store or something, anything that triggers you. And I immediately now go to a place where I'm thinking, that triggered me. There must be work there for me because that's not harmony. And yes, it was initiated by someone else, but I was part of that interaction, right? So there's a lesson for that person too. They may not be awakened to the fact that it's a lesson, but I am. I may not know what the lesson is, but I know there's something to work on there. And all of that to me is related to the bands of power and the central concept of I need, right? Which pervades all of these rites. So I really love that. And the healing part, so that's the protection part. The healing part, the bands of power, is healing through connection and healing through flow. Again, foundational concept, powerful concept, right? In the West, we tend to compartmentalize everything. Like I have a problem, I need a solution for that problem, and then we move on to the next, diagnosis story or the next symptom, whatever it is. That's not the way of thinking of these ancient people. Their way of thinking is you heal through connection, flow. And if you have something that you need to be healed from in the first place, like what we would call a disease, they don't call it that, but what we would call a disease, it's because you're not connected and you're not in flow in the first place. Right? So there's, as I said in the beginning, there's this spiritual profound aspect to these rites, but there's also a practical aspect to every single one of them on how to live your life on a daily basis, like how to do it. It's not just the concept, right? Do this and it will help you, that kind of idea, right? So then we come to the harmony rite, and oh my gosh, I could do hours on this one thing. So the harmony rite, if I had to pick one of these rites that had the biggest impact, I know that isn't fair because they all have unique aspects, right? But the one that had the biggest impact on me is this one. When I started taking this on board in terms of healing me and changing my perspective from being concerned about my own healing to being concerned about healing of all and healing of the earth. This one is kind of where I turned that corner. And the harmony writer, Aini Karpai, there's that word again, right? Aini, harmony, is about having multiple viewpoints. So we talked about connection with all things, right, in the bands of power. The harmony rite is about having multiple viewpoints in those connections. And the practical way that we can connect to the powers that be to have different perspectives on an issue that we have, a need for healing or an attitude or a relationship or something that isn't working for us in our lives. And this is where we bring in the concept very strongly of the archetype that Carl Jung came up with. These are those universal concepts that all humans share across the ages. And I'm going to give you the Andean names for them and what they're about. But when I do that, think about in your own history, in your own traditions that you've learned, how easy it is to interchange the name. It represents the same thing with some other thing, right? But in the Andean tradition, this goes along with the 7 chakras. And this is part of what Alberto did with the 4 winds to try to connect this to a more universal concept so that other traditions would have an easier time accessing this information and practicing it. So the Andeans don't have the concept exactly of chakras. They do have energy centers, but the 7 chakras are so universally understood that that's how we talk about the archetypes in the harmony rite. So we start with our root chakra, which is the serpent. Sachamama is the Quechua name. And the serpent is demonized in the West because of Judeo-Christian traditions. The serpent is evil, the serpent is the deceiver, the liar, all those things. None of those things are true in the Andean way of thinking, right? They're very, in some ways, they're beautifully practical in how they think about these archetypes, right? The snake is close to the earth and flows across the earth and is so sensitive on their belly that they can feel all the differences and the bumps and the textures and everything on the earth. They feel everything. So the physical sensation, our physical connection with the earth, is represented by the serpent. It is in no way evil or bad, right? Again, it's the practical look at what the serpent is. And we talk about the serpent in terms of them showing us the beauty way, because they are walking in beauty, crawling in beauty in their case, right? Because they're so close to the earth, or so harmony. And the Andeans revere being connected and close to the earth in that way. And so they talk about the serpent as showing us the beauty way. And I really, really resonate with that. I really love that. And, you know, a weird thing, I've always been loved snakes. Dondi will tell you, I used to have pet snakes and stuff that people gave them the creepy crawlies or whatever. I never felt that way about snakes. I loved them. So then we move up the energy centers to the next one. Oh, I think I mentioned the snake, right? Sachamama is the Quechua name. Then we move up the energy centers to our belly, and that's the realm of the jaguar, Uma Otorongo. And she lives in courage, and she walks through the shadows in the jungle with no fear. And she has no enemies, right? Because she's at the top of the food chain. Nobody messes with her. Well, except maybe man now, right? But in the traditional way of thinking, she has no enemies, so she has no fear. And everything she represents is how to live impeccably. And what that means to me is all of her actions are for a purpose. And a lot of it is about survival for her, but it's also about caring for her cubs, caring for her pack, her community, all of those things. So acting impeccably, not doing things for a frivolous reason, or certainly for a reason that's against your best interests or your higher nature, right? So that's what the jaguar has to teach us. And also about the feeling, because fear is a feeling, right? So if you have no fear, the absence of fear is a goal to be attained. For a lot of us, fear shows up in lots of ways in our life, and it really engages our emotion and all of our emotions to try to understand and clear where that fear that doesn't help us, that we're hanging on to, can be cleared and worked on. That's what the jaguar brings in for us. Then we move to the solar plexus area, which is the hummingbird and our ancestors. It's the direction of the ancestors. I love the hummingbird. This is also too where you can see the first two are kind of our physical nature, more of our, I don't want to say base because that's not the right word, but more foundational natures, right? As we move into the realm of the hummingbird, we move into starting into the realm of spirit and the connection between body and spirit, right? So what does the hummingbird represent? Well, think about hummingbirds, right? They don't get tired. They're always moving. They don't second guess whether they can fly from South America to Canada because they don't have enough energy or enough food, or they've got other things to do. They just do it. And they follow this invisible map that they have somewhere in their field, and they never get lost. They are the map makers in the Andean way of thinking. And for us spiritually, as we grow and change and transform, the hummingbird helps us create a new map. The old map doesn't work for us anymore. And the old map got us where we are with our pain and our suffering and our health issues. The hummingbird can help us find a new map. So we call it making a new mythic map, right? But the hummingbird also shows us how to drink the sweet nectar because that's all they feed on. They find the sweet nectar and they drink that. So how often can we use that in our lives, right? We get anxiety, we get tense. Think of the hummingbird. They're always looking for the sweet nectar. They're not looking for the problems. They're not looking for the rotted food or the cast off things. They're looking for the sweet, growing, beautiful nectar. And even when they're flying, they almost look like they're still, don't they? So they also can show us how to have stillness. This one is very current for me right now because I find myself being overly busy. And what I mean by that is just kind of letting the momentum of daily life take over and let things be scheduled and let things happen instead of being intentional about it. And this is what I learned from hummingbird is you can have stillness and peace even in the midst of all of that. And you don't have to, being busy, that word sounds like bees buzzing around, doesn't it? Being busy is a choice. You can do all the same things and all the same timing and still have stillness in the middle of it all. So that's what I learned from hummingbird. And it's also the direction of our ancestors. And this, again, this could be like a whole other deep conversation, but the ancestors come in to show us that we can learn from them and we can use their help to clear our own issues, our own problems, our own challenges, because we're connected to them. And they're there ready, willing, and able to help us at all times. So the ancestors come in and they bring their lessons and they bring their stories so that we can learn and we can help clear. Because the Q'ero, and going back to the Inca, believe that we live many, many, many times, similar to the Eastern philosophy of reincarnation, right? And during all those lives, we accumulate shadow patterns, and those patterns repeat until they're cleared, until we awaken enough to start working on it, realizing that that pattern exists, first of all, and then taking up the tools like these rites to work on them. So the direction of hummingbird, the direction of the north, is incredibly important and valuable, right? So much, all these directions have so much to teach us, all the archetypes rather. And they also do represent the directions. When we call in the directions, which is another ceremony, we call in the help of these archetypes. So then we move into the heart, which is the region of Condor and Eagle, and the direction of the east. And what we say, Condor, Eagle, everything else has a single archetype, right? But the north has too, the Condor and the Eagle. And there's an ancient legend about the coming together of the Condor and the Eagle that represents the coming together of North America and South America in unity and Aini, and that will represent a new age or a coming of age for humanity, where we step from being Homo sapiens to Homo luminous, and we break out of this ancestral pattern of multi-generational changes to changing ourselves in one generation. And guess what? It's happening now. This is the time. The eagle and the condor are coming together. And we have the opportunity to take a quantum leap. And I use that word intentionally, quantum, because we all exist in the same quantum energy field. We have the ability now to take a quantum leap in our own evolution and actually be a participant and a witness in our own evolution. And so the powerful, powerful energy of the East is all of that. But it's also the archetype of the eagle and the condor allow us to see from high above everything below us with perfect clarity, right? That's what they do. They can see for miles. They can see prey for miles. And they kind of have this dispassionate energy almost, where they're just cruising along and they're seeing everything as it is. But then when they are close up and they're doing something like grabbing their prey or mating or fighting or whatever they do, they see that with perfect clarity. So the eagle condor energy gives us the ability to see at multiple levels, if you will, everything with perfect clarity. And how often is that useful in your life? And can you start to see how, like, let's say I have a problem in my life. Maybe it's a problem with a relationship. I can take that problem as I naturally perceive it during the day, or it gives me lots of anxiety. And I can start to take it through these archetypes. Okay, how does my relationship feel in my body? What does Sachamama tell me? How do I really feel about it? What does it make me feel? That's Altarongo telling me that. Right? Then we bring it into the realm of hummingbird and the realm of eagle, and we get different perspectives on it. As I said before, this is spiritual, but it's also very practical. And you can see the value in these rites in helping us in our daily lives. So condor eagle, perfect sight, perfect seeing, perfect clarity, right? Something to aspire to. We all want to see. And they also see things as they truly are. Everything is energy. Everything is energy. Matter is an illusion. Matter is just tiny little strings of energy vibrating at a specific frequency. So if everything is energy, if we can tap into that energy and maybe move that energy in a way that's in our favor, you can see how powerful these practices become. So then we get into the realm of the keepers. We go from the animal archetypes to the keepers of the worlds. And the first one is Huascar. And Huascar is the keeper of the lower world. And in the Andean way of thinking, as contrasting to the Western way of thinking, the lower world in the West is about hell, bad things, trapped things, torture, all those horrible things, right? That's not how the ancient Karo can think about it. The lower world is where the shadow exists, abandoned things, things that we don't want to see or don't want to deal with. And there could be, creepy things or demons hanging out around different corners, but it's not about torturing you. It's about giving you opportunity to go there in an intentional, guided ways to find those shadows and either integrate them, overcome them, whatever the appropriate thing is. And Huascar is there to guide you if you're there with the proper intent. And I can tell you, having led many journeys to the lower world and done many myself, it's always incredibly impactful and transformational. And it can unite you with aspects of yourself that you're denying, aspects of yourself that are too painful, perhaps, to process. That's what this realm is about. Thank you, Nicola. It's the collective unconscious, getting back to Carl Jung. That's kind of where this lives, and the archetypes for that. And we could go into a lot more depth there, but I'm just trying to give you an idea of what these realms are like. Then we move into the middle world, the realm of Quetzalcoatl. And think about Quetzalcoatl, right? Quetzalcoatl is a feathered snake. So it represents the earth and the sky. And we move into the middle world. I think of it as like a hyper real version of the world we live in. A world where we're fully awake and aware spiritually, and we see things more as they are and not how we judge them to be or how we experience them emotionally. And Quetzalcoatl is the guide for that world. And the middle world, journeying into the middle world, helps us find our allies, our archetype allies, the power animals, the spirits. Some spirits reside there. Actually, spirits reside in all three places, different kinds of spirits. But this is where we find help. I feel help, guidance in everyday life in the middle world. That's where our power animals come in. That's where we can journey to find answers that are perplexing us or plaguing us. And Quetzalcoatl is our guide there. And then we move into the realm of spirit, Pachacuti or Pachacutec is the more modern interpretation of that word. And that's the crown chakra. And that's where our spiritual parents rely. This is or live. This is the divine realm. And this is where we go to connect to our destiny. Connecting to our destiny. Huge concept, right? And one of the core teachings of this is unless we connect with our destiny and really embrace the possible future, that is our highest possible future, then we're kind of relegated to fate, which is all about the probable future. In other words, if we don't do anything, we just keep living our life in survival mode day to day without any awareness of what's happening or any awareness about what's in our best interests, that's where we live, in the world of fate, in the world of probable. So the realm of Pachacutec is about, and he is the guide, he, she is the guide, to help us understand what our highest nature is and what we can connect to really claim our destiny. And I feel like this is like, for me, it's a daily affirmation and a daily refocusing, because being in this mortal existence, this temporal existence, it's so easy to get distracted from that destiny, right? Everything that's happening around us, we start to shift our perception like, that's the future I want. And it helps start reorganizing the chaos around us into more coherence and more flow. And whenever I start feeling, overly tired or anxious or things like that, I remember that. Okay, yeah, I'm feeling that, but it's distracting me from feeling what it might be like to have my possible future. And through exercises, you can actually call in that version of yourself, that future healed, fully expressed version of yourself. Wow, powerful concept, right? That version of yourself has already healed. They are already the person that you were always meant to be. And since we believe, and physics is showing now, that time is a construct, it's an illusion, that person exists. Just like the wounded person in your past or your child, all of those versions of you, including the one you're looking at now in the mirror, all of those versions of you exist. They all have wounds and they all have power. They all have lessons. And they're all accessible to us to learn from. That's part of that ancestral healing too. You are your own ancestor as well. Think about that, right? Because if you've had many lives, then you are your own ancestor, at least spiritually. So I know that's a lot, but excuse me, calling in your destiny is such a huge part of this work, because it kind of gives purpose to the work, right? It's like, why am I going into the shadow? It's really uncomfortable and painful. Why am I doing this? Well, it's because it's allowing you to build a bridge to that person that you were always meant to be, that you're here to become. And man, if that doesn't get you out of bed in the morning, I don't know what does, because that person is the person that has clarity, perfect clarity on your mission and is living it, right? And all of the things like being in harmony, being in Aini with all things, and giving service to others and taking service from others, and all the reciprocity, that person fully embodies all of it. So that was the harmony rite. And I look at it as kind of the harmony rite is about integrating you as a whole being. And it's intelligence Yeah, okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. I don't know what's going on with all these technical issues. It's usually pretty smooth. When I do this, it's pretty smooth, and I'm still streaming. Okay, good. All right. Good, good, good. I'm still streaming. So I was talking about the harmony rite and its importance in claiming your destiny is one of the things it is, right? But it's really more about integrating yourself as a whole person, and intellect plus instinct. And that is really what being a fully integrated human being is about to me, right? It's not demonizing the intellect or decreasing the value of the intuitive. I think people tend to polarize between the two, right? You have the strict rationalists that say unless you have evidence-based science to back up what you're saying, then it's garbage, right? Then you have the extreme on the other side, which is um, our brain really isn't that important. What's important is our spiritual connection, and sitting and meditating all day, every day, and just feeding the body so that we can do that. That any of those paths work for people. I'm not saying anything is wrong. What I'm saying is the goal of the Karo in this ancient philosophy is the integration of all the parts of yourself so that they're all in harmony. And I love that because I grew up as a scientist. I was a physics major in college. And it took me many years, mostly from reading, to understand the value of first the value of the intuitive and then the value of integrating. And that's kind of where I'm at now. And I know we've gone on a while, and I appreciate you hanging with me through all the technical difficulties. And I want to make that kind of part one of our journey through the 10 rites. I think we got almost halfway there, but we'll get going on the next one. But I love the input. I love your time, and we'll get these technical things worked out for next time so that it won't be so choppy. But I love you, and feel honored and blessed to be with you every time. And um, I should mention too that when we work together one-on-one, and actually as part of my 13-week program, the initiation into these rites and much deeper connection to them through practical rituals and what would I say, contextualization into your life, what's happening in your life, is what I do. So if this is interesting to you, please connect with me, DM me, and we can talk about it. There's no obligation. I'm only interested in offering something that helps you. And if you think it helps you, great, then we can talk further. But I'm always available for that. And next time, or one of the coming next times, we'll talk about the remainder of the rites. But I hope this was useful for you and maybe gave you some new ways to think about things. And so I'll leave you with that. I love you and thank you so much for joining me today.